I am delighted to have with me a person who I know for several years because not only that he's a friend, but also because he has the one guy who has the pulse of the B2B technology, IT services, and the strategy landscape. Let me introduce Jaideep Mehta. Jaideep has been in the B2B world for a very long time. He was managing director of India and South Asia for IDC, managing partner for Indian Angel Network, and now he is managing director for RZOLUT, based in London. Welcome, Jaideep. Welcome to this discussion.
Thank you, Mridu. Thank you for having me, first of all. Congratulations on this great platform, and always a delight to speak with you. I was also thinking, I think our association now goes back almost 15 years here. So it's been a very long time. You're betraying our age here, but there you go.
So I think I really don't know where do I start because I'm talking to someone who has probably length and breadth of the technology industries and seen it all, uh, and seeing the transformation and not just seeing but has been responsible for driving the transformation in various organizations. But today I think we will limit our discussion to an area which is probably the most talked of after AI, which is customer experience. And a lot of things are evolving, they're changing thanks to the technology, thanks to the expectations of the customers. And CX, which was earlier a good touch point experience for customers, has now suddenly taken a much wider and bigger perspective and role. My first area, and especially the RegTech and FinTech ecosystem, which you are currently leading, where mostly RegTech is considered as a roadblock. What is the role CX is going to play, especially for your customer and their customers?
Sure, sure. Let's see. Let me just peel that a little bit because there's multiple layers to your question. So, uh, in the world of RegTech, the whole domain has been invented, so to say, because of the requirements that governments and regulators have on banks and financial institutions to follow certain rules and procedures and processes that keep you and me safe, right? So we must never lose sight of the fact that regulations are not an end in themselves. They're actually designed to keep citizens safe and to keep our banking systems clean of drug money and terrorist money and all of this stuff, right? Now, in that context, it therefore creates sort of checks in the processes, right? So at
Right.
the time you're onboarding a customer, you need to check who they are. You and me call it KYC. You have to, kind of check their backgrounds and so on and so forth. And that's a use case everyone is familiar with, right? Now you're quite right that historically there has been a view, an attitude that the compliance process actually kind of is a roadblock. And I will say to you what I've said to many of our customers that, you know, cars have brakes so you can drive fast. Imagine if you're driving a car without a brake, right? You would be crawling along at 10 miles an hour.
Right.
And similarly, compliance functions enable you to actually do your business faster. Imagine a world where there is no compliance and a terrorist ends up becoming your customer, or some drug money ends up getting, processed through the bank. What kind of reputational risk, regulatory fines, dare I say, criminal, indictments are you opening yourself up to? So the role compliance plays in that sense is that of the brakes in an automotive vehicle. Okay. And what's happening now, coming to specifically now the CX part of it, with the advent of machine learning, which is now fairly common in our world, and AI, which is being adopted at a fairly rapid pace, systems are getting smarter and smarter, right? So
Right.
today, many of us, when we are logging into our mobile banking app, today a fingerprint does the job, right? Biometrics, face IDs do the job. These are now acceptable ways of identification. Last generation technology didn't have this. right? Similarly, customer experience is improved because now you think about this, right? Like in the UK, I use my fingerprint, I open my banking app. I don't need to go through 3 steps, right? Similarly, if you're actually working in a bank and let's say Mridul moves some money to Jaideep, right? Systems today are operating in the background, right, to capture whether that's a suspicious transaction or not.
Right.
You don't have to tell the customer, okay, stop, right? The system will tell you in that 1% of the cases whether there's a conversation to be had or not. And again, a real world example of this, many times when you and I make a large value transaction on a credit card, we get a phone call.
You get a phone call.
It's not like a transaction is declined at that point. We've done the transaction. And then the phone call will come where earlier they would ask you to confirm, and now they just say press 1 if it was you and press 2 if it wasn't, right?
Right.
So technology is helping to improve customer experience, even in the context of regulatory processes on a day-to-day basis. So I hope I've answered your question.
No, definitely, definitely. And I think you touched upon AI, and everybody I talk to they just talk about AI. But you being an expert, I want to really understand AI is a double-edged sword, right? On one end, uh, it is helping, transform the businesses, deliver faster, superior, better intelligence, all that stuff. On the other end, it is also in the hands of the wrong people, or it can be misused to the extent that it can create security challenges, it can create impersonation, identity accesses issues, and stuff like that. In the modern business environment, especially in the fintech, RegTech area, how are you how do you see the role of AI going forward?
See, let me first just put AI in context with respect to the enterprise world, the B2B ecosystem, right? And I'll draw you a long arc of history over here, Pradul, right? Um, PC adoption took several decades before it became commonplace.
Right.
The next stage was actually not enterprise, but just application softwares. Remember Tally back in the days, right?
Yes.
For the longest time in companies, there would be 1 or 2 PCs, and the only software they would really use was Tally, and then maybe some early version of MS Office or their competitors who've all died along the way, right? Then came the ERP revolution, right? And ERPs took a decade to adopt. Then came more recently the packaged applications more generally, CRM, so on, from 2000s to 2010. And what most of your viewers will have lived through is the evolution of cloud computing, right? Now, how old is Amazon Web Services? It's 21 years old, right?
Right.
So Amazon's been around 20 years, AWS. Salesforce has been around that long. My point is, AI, the journey is just beginning. AI adoption in enterprises today, when we look back at 2025, when we're sitting in 2035, and hopefully you and I will be sitting on a beach somewhere, sipping some cocktails, right? We will look back and we will laugh at the hype which was created and its complete disconnect from the reality of that time. However, this hype is important and necessary to get people excited about the technology and really start to understand what it can do for them. That journey is just beginning. It's the same in RegTech, it's the same in customer experience. Okay.
Right. Right. Right.
5, 7, 10 years from now, we will have customer journeys which are unimaginable. Already today, right? As a early example, a new browser has come from Perplexity.
Oh yeah, comment.
Yeah, it's called Comet. You can type, apparently, now I've not done this myself, but I've been reliably informed that you can type into the search bar there, please buy me, let's say, Jaideep's new book for the lowest price possible so that it will be delivered to me in the next 3 days. And the entire process is executed by effectively agentic AI. Okay. So this, if not today, within 6 months, this will be real. Okay. And of course, in the back end, you filled up your credit card details and all of those
Right.
things, which is a one-off exercise.
Right.
What does this do for customer experience, right? When you talk about CX, this is going to revolutionize the way consumers interact with machines, right? So similarly, in the world of RegTech, we think about when we're onboarding customers, or we think about when we're tracking suspicious transactions, or when we are doing due diligence reports, right? At Resolute, okay, I'll give you a real example, and just visualize this. Let's say you're a large private bank. Hmm? You have to onboard clients. In most jurisdictions around the world, when you're onboarding a high net worth individual, you have to do a report called source of wealth, okay, which basically documents the source of that new client's wealth and make sure that they don't have any dodgy money and stuff like that, right? This report traditionally has taken the industry anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks to deliver, okay? With one wave of automation, we were able to contractually commit to delivering it in 5 working days.
Oh,
We now have an agent ready, which we are in the process of deploying. We've demoed it to clients, and we're deploying it in 1 or 2 clients as well, which is generating 90% of this report in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay.
my God.
Now, all of this jazzy stuff, what does this mean? Now you go back to the private bank. Okay. Mridul Srivastav is waiting to be onboarded as a client. Okay. Mridul Srivastav is a high net worth individual. No high net worth individual wants to wait 2 or 3 weeks before they can start the banking service, right? Neither does the bank want to wait. They want to onboard you as quickly as possible so that they can start making money off you, right?
Right.
What was a traditional roadblock? That due diligence report, without which they can't bring you on board. Now, technology has reached a point where what was a 10-15 day process is now a 1 day process, less
Right.
than 1 day process, minutes, hours, right? There is a clear line of sight business benefit in terms of revenue velocity. And there is most definitely, it's easy to visualize the dramatic increase in customer satisfaction that you will have when you tell the client, oh, by the way, you don't have to wait 10 days before we onboard you. Give us only a day or 2 days, right?
Right.
So this is something that we ourselves are implementing. So I'm not talking theoretically or, hypothetically. This is something that we are able to do today. So and this is all happening because of AI, right?
Right.
So, so this is the benefit of AI. Now we come to the challenges posed by AI, right? Uh, uh, very famous incidents have happened. Completely fake CFO video conference, which caused millions of dollars to be lost, and so on and so forth. My view is, Ridul, that we have to be very cognizant of these. These are very dangerous trends, right?
Right.
Uh, However, these the bad guys and what they do with technology, unfortunately, are a handmaiden of every successive technology that we've seen adoption of, right?
Correct.
When cloud computing happened, for the first time, thieves had the ability to break into a cloud service provider and steal millions of dollars worth of credit card details and usernames and passwords, which they could sell on the dark web. It
Right.
never stopped us from adopting cloud computing at scale, either as consumers or as enterprises, right? And numerous such incidents have happened. Now, I'm not trivializing them. What I am saying is that as an industry, the tech industry needs to be cognizant of it, build in the fire alarms, the tripwires, and so on, so that first, there is deterrence, and second, God forbid, if the bad guys do break in or do weird things using the technology, it's easily traceable, right?
Right.
And I think there, very frankly, the tech industry can do better.
That is true. That is true. I think that ways the digital footprint is very easy to track. You only it's matter of time
See,
and
yeah,
technology.
I mean, if you take the current paradigm today on social media, there's all kinds of uh, hate speech, for example.
Right.
Okay, and the social media guys, I don't want to take any one platform's name, but the general industry thing is, oh, we can't control what's on our platform. Okay, but if you think about the social media platforms you and I use every day, have you ever seen child pornography on them? The answer is no.
Yeah,
So how come they can keep child pornography out, but they can't keep hate speech out, right? I rest my case.
No, I
So we can
completely
do
agree.
better, and we have to stay ahead of the criminals here.
No, I completely agree. And on that note, there is one or two areas which I really want to understand your point of view, not just as MD of Resolute, but also as an expert in the industry and have advised so many companies, right? Uh, Two things. So the first one, let me talk about the first one first. It the From a consumer point of view, there is becoming a trust deficit and
Uh-huh.
because of over transparency and over personalization, because we want to deliver a superior CX, and because I know everything about you, right? Somewhere in a three-pager disclaimer, you have already signed and given me rights for it. In such a scenario, when there is a trust deficit, when there is a transparency issue in the digital age, how organizations should adopt ethics to deliver CX in an ethical way or deliver
Mhm.
customer experience, not just experience, but customer engagement in a more ethical fashion.
Huh. That's a great question. See, the answer is actually in the question itself, right? And what I mean by that is ethical behavior comes from ethical mindsets, right? Today, if you look at the Indian financial services ecosystem, one particular NBFC has become the subject of memes because of their persistent spam calling to consumers like you and me, offering us loans of all kinds and so on and so forth, right? In that very same industry, there are other NBFCs and other banks who don't indulge in such behavior,
Right,
right? They have access to the same information, they can buy the same calling lists and all that. So I'm using that as an example. Similarly, when uh, you know, when any company, whether it's an e-commerce player, a quick commerce player, a financial services player, they have access to our data, right? And let's say they have a partner, well, whichever way they get it. Let me not, get into that. They have to decide whether the reputational damage they do to themselves by being intrusive or by making their customers uncomfortable actually is that worthwhile given the business outcome, or is it the other way around that they're actually damaging the business by indulging in such behavior? So the
right,
first thing I'll say is some level of self-consciousness and self-governance. The second thing I'll say to you is that every country, India most definitely, should take a leaf. I'm not saying go all the way, but take a leaf out of GDPR, the Data Privacy Act that governs the European Union and most of Europe.
right,
Right?
right,
So they have the strongest guardrails. There is deep respect for the individual's privacy. You cannot get bombarded. I mean, I live in England today. Let me tell you, I still have my India mobile number. I still get 20, 30, 40 spam calls a day. On my UK mobile number, you know how many spam calls a day I get?
zero.
The concept doesn't exist, right? And the reason is if someone does spam call me and I complain about them, there's heavy fines, there's all kinds of um, bad outcomes for them. But as we all know, in India, there's no outcome, there's no bad outcome. There's a lot of noise which is generated, but ultimately the problem has been endemic and persisting for years. So whether it's AI, whether it's calling, whether it's spam emails, the notion of ethical behaviors is one of those vectors which doesn't change with technology, right?
Right,
So people have to, and companies have to really decide for themselves what they want to do with the information that they're gleaning. Okay, I'll leave it there because this is a philosophical discussion really in some ways, right? The other thing, actually, there's one more thing I will say that I've noticed and I've observed that in different cultures, the tolerance levels of being at the receiving end of this are very different, right?
right,
Um, I see that by and large, the Americans seem to be a lot more comfortable. The Europeans are not, and I would say Indians are now in that quadrant of don't care because we become so immunized, to being pounded day and night. Well, of
right.
course we care, but ultimately we've kind of almost given up. But the government does need to step in at some point and put some regulations in place here.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think DPDP is one act which has been, hanging for the last 4 or 5 years now. And I don't know what's stopping the government to implement it, because such kind of things, the GDPR has been there for donkey's years, and it's really the strictest in the world, more strict than even the CCPA in US. So I
Yep.
think somewhere people have to bring that up. But I completely agree. At end of the day, even that these ethical choices have to be made by the corporates themselves as well. My
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, sir.
my second point, and this is something which when I thought I'll be speaking to Jaideep, this was the first thing which came to my mind. I'll definitely ask him because of his immense knowledge. Whenever we go and talk to CX leaders, right? In India, CX leaders are basically those who were largely either the customer service heads or CMOs. And one
Mhm.
of the questions which always come in the discussion is, how do organizations measure CX?
Mhm.
What should be the measurement of a CX? Is it retention? It is revenue? What will it define? Definitely, if you want to create one out of it, then it should have a very unique or even light measurement. What according to you should be there?
Yeah, see, uh, measuring CX is critically important. There's no question about it. I think, let me put it this way: there needs to be a sort of a balanced scorecard approach to measurement of CX. Which so one part of it, which is very easy today with tools, and I know a lot of companies do this already, is putting the the monitors in place where they can track the individual as he's using the app or using the website to do a transaction, right?
Right,
And how many steps in that journey, can we make it shorter and better? Can we keep the user interface cleaner, simpler, and so on? And you can quite easily measure that, right? So uh, when I was running newspapers, I remember one of the mantras we used to have is that when someone comes onto the homepage, they should get to their desired article in no more than 2 to 3 clicks, right? Which included the login shot and everything. So, and the preferences engine played a big part in that. Uh, Similarly, I know that when people are selling subscriptions, leaving aside the two-factor authentication, which you and me can do nothing about, they want to make it as seamless as possible. So measuring the purchase journey is very much part of it, right? The second thing is the moment of truth, which is the actual transaction. Now, when we talk about B2B, that transaction doesn't necessarily involve an app or a website. It can be a purchase process which involves purchase orders and invoices and analog analog transactions,
right,
let me say, right?
right,
But even those can be measured in terms of number of steps, the elapsed time, the time taken between steps, and really sharpening that process. Because if someone's just bought your product, like if someone's just bought my data, right? I want to be in a place where I can onboard them very quickly. I
correct,
can make it, they've bought my data. I want to make sure that I can slot in the pipe into their platform very, very quickly, move my data there, right? Onboard them quickly, get them to start using the data quickly, right? Now, there are, depending on which business you are in, there are different measures for this, but we certainly very closely look at how long is the integration process taking. We've made a lot of investments at our end to build very robust and transparent APIs, which we share with our partners and customers straight up, so they can very easily understand what they need to be doing at their end to be able to ingest our data. Right now, in the old world, that API would not exist, and
right.
I would say, yeah, you talk to my tech guys, and they'll talk to your tech guys, and some Kathakali will happen, and 6 months later something might happen. Now it's a question of days, right? And we are now also taking steps using a particular technology, which I won't get into because it's all jargony, right? But it creates what I would call a Lego block solution, right? So if my
Right.
customer is using the same technology, it's a Lego block. And then the integration happens in minutes, right? Now, this is all part of the onboarding experience. And just like we've measured it and tried to shorten it from weeks, or rather months to weeks to days, and in some cases, overnight, right? Every company should be measuring the onboarding experience. It's a critically important piece. Back in the days when we were doing this research at IDC, right? I remember it was a key finding that when a customer has bought your product, right, whether they become a reference client 6 months, 12 months down the line, a big determinant of that is how well or how happily or unhappily
Right.
they remember the onboarding process. It's a big
Right.
part of CX, right?
That's right.
And then obviously the final part is, the tracking the usage metrics and all of that stuff, yeah, which most companies do fairly well. The onboarding process is where many companies actually, that's the banana peel.
Yeah. That's actually the start touch point. Very, very critical touch point
Yeah,
for us.
yeah.
Okay. So we can continue on this for a long time, but I think we have a time. But before I close this, I want to have one last question. Um, from India to UK at a global stage, what difference you find in the customer expectations between the two continents?
uh, that's a good one. So see, in India, we are much more demanding as consumers. I find my colleagues and friends over here, my clients over here are much more tolerant. So that's one general remark I'll make. I think also, and this is purely to do with labor costs. As Indians, we are very much used to engaging with humans, right, to get a service delivered. In Europe, self-help, FAQs, etc., are the norm. So the experience that they expect versus what Indians expect are very, very different in terms of self-help. Human will help me, right?
Great.
Much more tolerant in terms of waiting times and so on, much more impatient, want everything today. And the bar is much higher. But the great thing is when an Indian company comes into Europe and our DNA is the impatient client and the impatient customer, it results in customer delight in the Western markets.
Right.
So my lesson has been, and what I will leave behind for your viewers is take that Indian DNA of high levels of customer service and apply it wherever feasible and possible when you are engaging with your Western world, because they love it. They love the idea
Right.
of engaging with people rather than self-help books and so on. So those are two or three things which come to mind straight away.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, we can go on and on, right, Jaideep, but I think there is a time constraint. It was
Sure,
lovely
of course.
speaking to you, and your knowledge, experience, and wisdom is definitely. I think my viewers will be delighted to hear that, and they might ask
I'm
for more.
privileged.
So
So privileged.
we may come back to you for more. But thank you so much for your time.
All right,
It was a pleasure talking to you.
okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. And thank you to you and your team. Best of luck with CXNet, and I look forward to all the other great conversations that you're having and learning
Sure,
my two bits from them as well.
sure,
Thank you
sure.
very much.